Greetings from Paris. Hi.
Hey, hey, oh la la.
I was I was so excited about KubeCon. I just thought I'd hurry up and get here 2 weeks early. Not really.
Very
I'm
good.
here.
Now you can
Now I
you
can
can
what?
you can find the places where we should go 2 weeks from now.
I can scout.
You're
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah.
the tour guide for
Uh-oh.
KubeCon.
I'm only here for a couple of days. I used to play in a band. I used to play in a band with my brother called Mutual Benefit. I'm wearing the t-shirt. And Mutual Benefit without me as a band member anymore is touring, doing a European tour. So I've joined up with the tour. I'm with the bands here. And I'm gonna ride along in the tour van and draw my slides for KubeCon, my KubeCon presentations.
In other words, you were a member before. Now you're a groupie.
A groupie, I don't like the implications of the word groupie, so I'm going to say
True,
no.
true, true.
I'm a loving sister and good friend. So I'm really happy to be here. And then next week when we stream, I'll be somewhere. I don't even know where I'll be. So that's fun. And also very excited about KubeCon. I can't wait. But let's get to business. Thanks for all the hellos in the chats. I love that we're part of a global. All our guests today, we're very global today, which I'm all about. Yes, the coolest. So let's recap last week. Last week we talked about Dex and Keycloak. What do we need
it's
to know?
it's almost like a prerequisite for what we're going to talk now today, right?
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
necessarily a prerequisite in terms of tooling that needs to be used, but basically today we're going to talk about authorization, right? And there is no such a
Mm-hmm.
thing as authorization without authentication. You cannot authorize something you don't, or someone you don't know who that someone is or what that something is, right?
So
So,
even the
and
last 2 weeks, we've been talking about establishing identity. First, establishing identity for workloads, and then for humans, both. And
exactly.
then I think today that's going to be relevant because I think some technologies today are for humans to use, and some are for machines to use, or to
I don't
to
like
give
humans, so
access to
we can
humans.
just focus on machines,
We'll say give
please.
access to machines versus giving access to humans, or both. It seems like everything kind of does both, but neither, but might focus on one thing or the other. Because when we talk about access, doesn't Keycloak also has some features around access? Doesn't
It
doesn't
has
Athens
some, but
Athens has, yeah.
I mean, all those tools and technologies are never only about one thing only, right? So there is
Yeah.
always mixture, and we try to put them in categories like, oh, are you more about this or more about that, right?
Yeah. It's pretty confusing, honestly, because even um, authentication, so establishing identity, it still usually involves at least a little bit of access when you're maybe getting initial access into a system. But that's still kind of grouped under authentication. Yeah, best I can tell from my from
I don't
me
know.
going through these
My
episodes.
strategy is to work alone and not have any humans around me, so I
But
cannot
you're
tell
here
you.
now, Victor, and we've been doing this for a year and a half now. You're
Yeah,
in
but
it.
did you ever ask me to get access to any of my servers?
Yeah, yeah. um, and then I guess one thing I want to ask about is well, I have a thing to say and a thing to ask. So, like, in all of this stuff, it's like, okay, we need to establish who, we need to establish like the identity, and then we need to like what are they doing, and then it's like it's all policy based again. Like so many of these security things just have to do with another way of writing rules around around something in your system. And so like how is this, can't you control some access, at least access for who can create stuff, like even at the Caverno level, at the cluster policy making level?
Uh, in theory, you could probably, but that's usually not really what they're for, right?
Okay.
Uh, on a most basic level, and assuming that we're talking about Kubernetes now, right? You have Kubernetes RBAC that tells you those are the resources you can access, and those are the operations you can do: create, update, delete, right, and read. And that's very basic, right? And then from there on, if we go back to Caverno, you would say, yeah, but you can create it, but you cannot put this value over there and things like that, right? You go deeper than a simple yes or no.
It's starting to click, and then I guess we're jumping ahead a little bit, probably because I'm excited, probably because that song just has me so jazzed. So last week though we talked about establishing identity, and we talked about Dex versus Keycloak, the two CNCF projects that do that. Do you want to give the quick synopsis for what each one does?
Yeah, I can tell you, they authorize users. In a nutshell, they validate that you are who you say you are, right? That's the gist of it. Now, if you go to Keycloak, for example, you will get lost in 15 seconds among all the hundreds of options there are, right? So there's a lot to it, right? But essentially, the purpose is to say, are you who you say you are?
Yeah. Well, and then Dex takes like a lot of different technologies that say, are you who you say you are? And then makes it so you could interact with all of them via OpenID Connect, which seems to be the standard in the space. So if you have an older system, if you're using like, I don't know, regardless of whether it's older, like LDAP or SAML or even other OpenID Connect, and you want them all to work together, then that's a good use case for Dex. And it's like the only use case for Dex. And Dex seems to be more like operator facing. And also Argo CD and SigStore both use Dex, which I think is cool.
If you would compare Keycloak to, let's say, Kafka, then Dex would be equivalent to nuts. Right? NATC. TS.
Oh, got it.
I know how your brain works. No, not that, Whitney. NATS. In terms that kind of nuts is very limited in what it offers, but it's very lightweight, right? And it's very useful in specific scenarios, right? It's not competing with Kafka. But okay, this is what I do. I do it pretty well. If that's what you need, great. If not, go to Kafka, right? And I feel that it's similar with Dex and Keycloak.
Keycloak is... So I have a little trouble wrapping my head around Keycloak because it's just like Keycloak just does everything. And when you just say it just does everything, it's, as someone new to the space, it's hard to like, okay, but what's everything? What are some things? What are some things? So
I dare you to go to click. Okay, here's a task for you, Whitney. Go to Keycloak UI and write down in a README all the options and what they do. And 3 years from now, we can continue with this show.
Yeah, I think it's helpful. Isn't Keycloak's at least like developer facing? It's meant to help developers add login flows to their applications, right? Yeah. It seems to be. And then you can do things like register. I have a list here. I did make a list, and I asked our guest last week for a list. So I didn't come up with it on my own, but it registers users for the first time. You could recover passwords. You could implement multi-factor authentication. It controls how a user authenticates, which we of course talked about, but then it manages both users and clients. Like people are going to use that identity once it happens. And you can design and implement login flows, among other things, among a bajillion other things. So that's that. And then what did the people choose?
The people chose. I have it somewhere. Wait, I'll find it. People chose. There is a 50% chance that you will be able to guess. Anyways, Keycloak. That's the choice. That's what we are going to show today. So can you put my screen on?
Of course.
Is it on?
Yeah, we got to sign into
Okay.
Keycloak screen right
So
now.
installed Keycloak, which is just a couple of YAML files. No Helm chart as far as I've seen, at least not obvious. Anyways, install Keycloak, and when you install it for the first time, you can use, where is it? Admin. Admin as the username, admin as the password, and you can sign in, and then you can explore, and this is what happens.
Wait,
This is a
what?
very useful.
Oh, not secure.
No, sorry.
.mip.io.
I decided to
Oh.
move it to a different screen. This is what happened. Sorry, my bad. I moved it to a different screen. You haven't seen, but trust me, I typed admin. I got this, and I have no idea what is happening. I deleted my cookies. I cleaned up the browser. It doesn't fix the issue. So I'm going to do the same thing from Safari.
Oh, this is Safari. Okay.
There we go.
We're sorry, cookie not found. Same thing.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to blame. Now, one interesting thing that happened is this. The release was made 9 hours ago. 10 hours ago. So I'm going to blame it on the release, and I'm not going to show you the demo. Maybe the next episode, we'll see. I haven't had time to dig into why. I know it worked a few days ago. Now it doesn't. I did try it out. It's not kind of first time me doing it.
But even to get to UI, like you're doing some sort of installation, and then their next steps are UI based. Like it's so rare for you to show a UI. I think in this show, why with Keycloak?
Yeah, but that's it. Keycloak is mostly UI based. So you have API. I don't feel that many people are using it through the API. Now, of course, when your application is to authenticate users or to create users, it is doing through the API, through libraries that you can import. And I mean, or actually, you don't even need Keycloak specific libraries. You could interact with it as if it's any other identity provider. But when it comes to administration and setting it up, most of the cases, I feel that people go through the UI, which I'm not going to show you today. So that's it. That's our demo. Thank you so much. See you next week.
Maybe next week we'll have it. Cool. But I guess that's testament to the complexity too, which is part of the point of. Yeah.
I'll check it out. It's in the repo. I pushed the changes for Keycloak a few days ago. It worked. I'll check it out. It's probably something trivial. Maybe I messed it up. Who knows?
Excellent. So now we're talking.
That's your Wait. That's your definition of excellent. How do you? What's your reaction then
resolved.
When I do it right?
That's expected.
Okay.
Actually, it's not anymore. Excellent. I think I only just meant like, okay, that's resolved. Done.
Yeah.
Check.
Victor, go away. That's the go away, Victor. I know.
Is that what that is? Yeah. I guess no, I'll be self-aware every time I say excellent to anyone. But like, do I mean excellent? Probably not. Do I mean just time to stop talking? Say excellent to me now. Okay, excellent. So there we go. So now we have our
excellent.
Our access technologies. What are we kind of talked about this up top. What are we looking for when we're evaluating these three? So let's say what they are.
Excellent.
What are the three? Oh, stop. It's too much now.
Okay.
We have OpenFGA, we have Paralus, and we have Hexa. So these three all deal with authorization, and they all deal with it like very different parts of giving access, basically. So when you're talking about giving access, there's like giving access to humans versus giving access to processes. And then even when you're giving access to humans, they're giving access to like entire cloud estates, entire systems across systems versus like keeping it in Kubernetes clusters. And then it's like, are you giving access to your users in terms of what they can get? Or are you giving access to people who are developing and accessing resources internally who need to? So there's a lot of layers of things to consider. So when we lump everything together in access, we are not at all comparing apples to apples, more so than most episodes, I think. What say ye, Victor?
I say excellent.
I've
It's
created a
going to follow you
monster.
around. That's it. Wait until we get on a stage in KubeCon. You'll see.
Oh no. Uh, um, instead of comparing apples to apples, these are like so different technologies in terms of what they're controlling access to. I was saying pre-show, I think it's more like you're comparing an Apple to like a semi truck to like Jupiter. Like it's not even in the same family of stuff, but it is because it's access. So we're gonna have a fun time untangling. So I'd say if I were watching this the first time, I would say it's nice to pay attention to like who's supposed to use this technology, who are they granting access to, and then what's the object, and that's probably a good mental model to have moving forward. And with that, I think let's say hello to our guests. Is it time?
Yeah,
Anything you'd
it's
like to
time.
add? Okay. First, we have Ragged. Welcome. Hello. Tell us about yourself, please.
Hey Victor, hey Whitney. I'm Raghid. I'm from Lebanon. Moved to Toronto a few years back. Had the very lucky chance to be part of the OpenFGA team, and yeah, I spend most of my time between OpenFGA and plants.
And plants. Oh,
And
that's
cats.
wonderful. And cats. Ah, yes. Speaking my language. You have my vote already. Okay. We'll move on to the next class. We'll see you soon for your presentation. Thank you. All right, next up we have Jerry. Welcome, Jerry. Introduce
Hi,
yourself,
Whitney.
please.
Thanks. Hi, Whitney. Hi, Victor. Thanks for having me here. Yeah, so my name is Jerry Gable. I'm head of standards over at Strata Identity. And most of my time is spent working on the Hexa policy orchestration project. And I wish I was skiing, like in the shots in the background here, but not today. I'm in Arizona, where we don't have any snow at the moment.
Ah, is that where you live?
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. Yes. Well, we'll see you soon for your presentation. Thank you, Jerry. And last but certainly not least, we have Siam. Welcome.
Thank you, Whitney. Thank you, Whitney. Thank you, Victor. Thank you for joining me. So actually, my name is Saim. I live in Islamabad, Pakistan, and we used to have a very, very coldy weather and cold freezes in March. We haven't expecting yet, but few days back, there's a thunderstorm, and this is so much cool breeze out there that we're actually enjoying unexpectedly. But with the technology stuff, I am a CNCF ambassador, and I do also host a show called Cloud Native Podcast. And then I did an episode on today on AI platform called Ada, and I try to do the same thing that the Victor does, is try to capture the technologies as best we can. So that is all about me, Whitney.
You told us nothing about your involvement with the
Paralus
project.
Zero Paralus. Okay, kick him out. We can do with 2 technology. We don't need 3. Not need 3 choices. That's it. Gone.
We're just kidding. You can tell us about your involvement with Paralus quickly.
I wasn't. Yes. First of all, I wasn't.
Absolutely. I think like while we're doing a presentation, I just speak about it, how I get introduced to the project, but let me do it very quick here. So I am actually the maintainer of the CNCF sandbox called Paralus open source project. I used to work with a company called Rafi System as a developer relations manager. And that's where the Paralus actually comes from, the company and the project behind it. But I will cover more as we speak.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We'll see you shortly. Okay, before we bring Brackett on to present, please, when you have questions, ask them immediately in the chat. So we'll get to those in a first come, first serve basis. And there have been episodes in the past where we can't get to them all. So it behooves you to ask them sooner rather than later. Another thing I want to say that I learned from YouTube comments is that our CNCF Slack, where you vote, is you need an invitation to join. So we have now an invitation to join that will include as part of the voting part at the end, but it's just a link to Victor, are you going to post it right now? We'll post it later.
No, I didn't know that I should
It's
post it.
part
I
in the,
did not.
the description.
It's
We
in the
added it to the
description.
description. Yes, it wasn't there before. Yes. So, all right, let's bring Reagan up. And Reagan, once you start talking, then Victor will start your time.
Yeah.
So, and you're muted.
I'm going to start the clock no matter whether you start talking or no. So, here we go. Go.
Perfect. Hey, folks. We're here to talk about OpenFGA. It's a flexible, fine-grained authorization solution, mainly targeting application developers. So what is it? What is OpenFGA? It's open source and deals with authorization, not authentication. It's not Keycloak. It targets, again, application developers mainly to build granular access and fine-grained access control using an easy-to-read, flexible modeling language, and which allows it to represent various diverse use cases. Currently, it's a CNCF sandbox project, and we hope to get to graduation at some point. So what is it made of? We have the core OpenFGA engine. It can be deployed and used as a separate API with like HTTP and gRPC interface, or it can be used as a library that you can bundle into your like if you're using Go, you can just use it as the library. This is what a normal check looks like. This is what your authorization would look like. As Witty mentioned, like everything is a user, a relation, and object. So everything is like an actor, an action, and what is being acted upon. A user can be a person, or it can be a machine, or it can be just another object, any other object. That's how you would use it. We have SDKs for various languages: JS, Python, Go, Java, .NET, and way more coming on in the future. We have a VS Code extension. It helps you build your model, provides things highlighting what you see here is the model. It provides validation to make sure like your model is working well. We have a CLI to interact with the server and allows you to test and deploy your model. And this is very important because with testing here, you can have kind of unit tests for your authorization. You don't need to integrate with your app before you can make sure that how you're thinking about authorization is working. So you can do validate everything before starting integration with your app. And more. We have documentation. We have GitHub Actions if you'd like CI/CD. We have a Helm chart to deploy OpenFGA, sample source to learn from, and a very healthy community. So what are the benefits of using OpenFGA? First of all, auditability. It is handling all your authorization, so you're able to see like when you granted access to people, and not just that, you're able to see without looking at the app code, you're able to see who has access to what, so you can audit for example, extraneous permission. Additionally, is like it allows for standardization of authorization. It doesn't need to be built into your app code anymore. The way your developers across teams interact with OpenFGA, it's the same thing that you saw earlier in the check. It's a user, a relation object. Can user do X? It allows you to easily have like granular permissions, especially like when you have nested objects or multi-tenancy. It's easy to update your authorization logic without updating your app code. It supports various use cases, B2B, B2C, and like B2B, B2C. And of course, like separation of concerns. Like your authorization logic is out of your app code, which is good. Like you can audit it separately. Quickly into modeling. What data do we need for OpenFGA to be able to serve? An authorization model like that has the types of objects, so user, organization, document, photo. This is relatively static. You only update it as you introduce new features, but we also need the data. So whenever things happen, you will tell us. So as Anne joins the OpenFGA org, you will send us a fact that like you tell us, okay, Anne is now a member. If Anne leaves, you'll delete this. Same thing. If you share a document, you'll need to tell us things like this. This is what a model looks like. You know, it's a very simple model, but if it says editor is editor from parent, and which this simple model allows like a person being an editor on a folder will be able to edit a folder 25 nested in 25 subfolders. How would you integrate it? This is quickly how you do. Let's say you have this sample endpoint. You'd authenticate usually authentication malware. You'd have authorization. So before every action, you'd have you'd authorize first. Can this user perform this action? And then proceed. Sharing a document, same thing. And then for sharing, you just let us know. We said we wanted the facts. Here you're letting us know, okay, this user now has this permission, this new user has this permission on this document. So when they try to view, they'll be able to. And same, when you create a document, you need to tell us. In this case, you're telling us this user has created this document in this particular org. We have a very open community. We have several big companies using OpenFGA. We're very active. We have more than 280
Cool.
contributors,
Very
and yeah, that's it.
Oh, there it is.
I was muted. There you go.
That was beautiful.
Almost finished.
Wonderful.
That's good.
Great job. Thank you so much. And we'll bring you back on later for the question and answer part. All right, Jerry's up next. Hello, Jerry.
Hello,
you have no screen to share today, so as soon as you're ready, get started.
That's right. Yes, we're here to talk about Hexa Policy Orchestration, a CNCF sandbox project. And no slides today. Hooray! So what is policy orchestration? Well, it enables the management of different policy formats in a vendor-neutral way. That's because we need this because each cloud system or platform have their own techniques and technologies for managing access policies and rules. So Hexa policy orchestration meets this goal by translating the different formats to and from a standard we call Identity Query Language, or IDQL. So Hexa is the open source, and it does this translation of IDQL to and from the target system formats. So we are only an administration and management platform. We do not change or replace the runtime authorization. For example, something like OpenFGA that you just heard about. So we use this term orchestration intentionally, borrowing from the Kubernetes world, right? Kubernetes orchestrates your container environments, abstracting away the differences between different cloud platforms, for example, and allowing you to automate the functions for deploying your workloads. So Hexa and IDQL also use abstraction to manage the different access control formats you see in all the cloud stacks and across different kinds of environments, enabling you to manage in a standard-based way. So far in our project, we've developed 3 different ways to do translation. For simple role-based systems, we can just map to an API that contains that information. We can do direct language translation. If there's a formal language on the other side of the equation, we can translate to and from that format. Or we have a way to directly interpret IDQL by the target system. So some of the systems we support today with different providers. On Google, it's the identity-aware proxy, or anything that uses their bind format or common expression language. On Azure, we support Entra ID as well as their API manager. On Amazon, it's their API gateway, Cognito, and Amazon verified permissions. And then finally, also Open Policy Agent. So quite a library of providers so far. So we're written in Go, so you can access APIs in Go, of course, or through a web UI, a new command line interface, which is great for doing testing or writing scripts. And then we expect to have a REST API in the future, so you can call the system from other languages like Python, Rust, and so on. So among the benefits of using policy orchestration, you're not changing the target system. So we're only using public APIs that are exposed for managing of policies or access configuration data. So we're not changing the target system. You can now operate with policy as code. So you can use a declarative format, IDQL, and then you can incorporate Hexa into your CI/CD pipeline, do version control, rollback, and so on. What you also gain is the ability to have consistent policy implementations across platforms. So if you're spreading workloads for high availability on different cloud systems, we can make sure those policies are in sync. This also means you can avoid vendor lock-in because we're using a neutral policy format. And then finally, better governance, better visibility into who has access to what. So you can find us on github.com. Hexa-org is where you'll find our repos. Thanks, Whitney. Back to you and Victor.
Awesome. Great work. Thank you so
Very
much.
good.
And we'll see you shortly for a question and answer. All right, welcome, welcome.
So
When
thank you.
you're
So
ready.
let me
Yeah.
okay, got it. So let me give you some. So Parallels we're actually defining as a self-service Kubernetes access management. So let me give you the history of this project as well. I work with a company called Rafi System, and we have a Kubernetes operation platform with bunch of the several different services reside around cluster, blueprint, drift detection, service mesh manager, Kubernetes policy, and some of other. So one of our feature in the platform called Zero Trust Access. So basically, what we do is actually we try to create a policy system because in Kubernetes we don't have a user, so we know the RBAC is tough, and a lot of the platform that the customers are using in their office side, they're the platform and the developers team. So writing up manual configuration for setting up RBAC is going to be a pain. We understand it. This is not going to be a staying longer run. So we need to do some automation. So they actually makes they open source a tool called Paralus that basically what does is they actually allow you to access the cluster with least privileges and just in time provision. So basically, when you hit a Paralus server, it's actually authenticate into the Kubernetes API, and that's an agent running on top of it. So basically, when you start integrating with the server, we have an agent installed on it, and it's deploy a ephemeral service account, and in that way, that ephemeral service account is actually give you the access to the Kubernetes cluster. So I will give you some story when we're talking with some of the customers in the office side. They are telling us these are the different ways they actually accessing the cluster. One of the things via access via Bastion, where all the user will use the same kube config, and that is a large service attack since the entire private network accessible from the Bastion. Some of the customers we have on that time are also using via jump host, that all user will use the same config, and you do a two ways jumping for jump host to a bastion, and that's becoming a dumping ground for YAML and secret etc. And it also has a large attack service since entire private network is accessible from bastion. And some of the customers on that time are using via VPN gateway. So it's kind of a better approach than the previous two version, but this has a very so much cost associated to it, and has some purchasing and operation hurdle as well. So we develop a tool which we understand that there's a manual processes will fall apart. We need some automation. So we have a summary of requirement that's ability to remotely access cloaked Kubernetes cluster, automated ephemeral just-in-time, least privileged credential, and all access strongly authenticated, and centralized audit trail of all access and activities. So for that requirement, we built a tool called Paralus that is basically help you allow to do a Kubernetes access management. So it's have a unified trusted access from the remote. It also has CLI, API, and the dashboard. So currently if you go into the Paralus, so basically what it all does is actually Paralus uses the Ori Creatus for identity management and authentication, and Caspon for authorization. So as additional security mechanism, Paralus implement MTLS across components, where Paralus core act as a certificate authority provider and validate all requests coming in and from various services and app. So that's all the information is also available on the parallels.io website. So there are so many other moving parts into it. So I will do not go into the detail, but I can let you know what are the different things available. So you can create custom roles, user and groups. You can change and revoke permission on the fly. You can access control via pre-configured role across clusters, single sign-on via GitLab, Google, Azure ID, or Okta, and you also get the opportunity to have audit logs and kubectl command history. So we have a GUI CLI tool called PCTL and Parallels API. We also added in the Civo marketplace that you can use it, and we also in the AWS marketplace as well. So and one of the way you can actually reach out to us via parallels.io, or joining the CNCF's Kubernetes Slack channel under Parallels, or CNCFs or Parallel Slack channel as well. With that, over to you, Vaishni.
Yeah, great job. That was
Amazing.
wonderful.
No gong for
Yeah,
you.
no gong for you. I welcome everyone back to the stage. Hello, hello, hello. We've
By
been a
the way,
little,
the people listening are a bit quiet today, so here's the
yeah.
public call. Write your questions.
Please ask us some questions. Our first question is more for me and Victor, and then I'll start asking questions. And that is just why wasn't the technology teleport to contestants?
I can say it. It's not
Yeah, you
CNCF.
can say it.
And that does
It's
not
not
make
CNCF.
it good or bad. It's not that we are grading people projects based on whether they're in CNCF or no, but we had to reduce the scope. Otherwise, we would go crazy. We are already going crazy, but that would make it accelerate the craziness, right? So this show is only about CNCF projects. We might make an exception if there is only one CNCF project in a category, and then we might bring outsider, more
Mm-hmm.
to have variety, but it's CNCF projects only. That's the reason, no other.
Excellent. So let's talk about who should use each technology. I actually have a question, and maybe can all three technologies be used together, and should they be used together? I want to ask Ragged first.
I would say definitely. Yeah. So but together is interesting. For example, for Paralus, I can see OpenFGA being the underlying because Saim, you mentioned like roles and groups and all that. So if Paralus wanted to add more fine-grained authorization for their users, they would use OpenFGA under the hood.
Cool.
And again, like from what Gary said, it seems like they were targeting different use cases. So I can, yeah, you may want to use Hexa for your policy orchestration, but OpenFGA is specific. It's strictly not. It's not a pre-back. It's not a policy-based system. So it's more on relationship-based. So it doesn't compete in the same space. But we definitely you can use OpenFGA for like things like authorizing Kubernetes calls, and actually you were talking about Keycloak, and like in our upcoming KubeCon in EU, there's a talk on like integrating Keycloak with OpenFGA.
Oh, cool. Jerry, how would Hexa integrate with the other two technologies, if at all?
Yeah, so where policy orchestration comes into the focus here is when you have many different policy formats to manage. You know, if you're only using OpenFGA, then you probably don't need orchestration, right? If that covers all of your environment. But when you're dealing with Open Policy Agent, OpenFGA, maybe some proprietary formats, Google or Amazon or Azure specific cloud platform configurations, that's where policy orchestration comes in, because we can map to each of those formats. Now today we don't have a provider that translates from IDQL to, you know, the OpenFGA format. I'm trying to, the name escapes me at the moment, the Zanzibar model. So we don't have a translator to the Zanzibar model, but that's something that could be produced.
Cool. And then what's unclear to me, like it's pretty clear to me that both OpenFGA and Paralus are for human use. Is Hexa for humans, or are you meant to be making policy around machines instead of human access?
It could be, yeah, it could be any kind of subject actor, you know, human, workload, or any of the sort. Yeah.
Cool.
Sorry, just to clarify, like for OpenFGA, that's the same. So in most of our example, we use humans, but there's no reason you cannot use it as a machine-to-machine authorization.
What's an example of a machine-to-machine use case?
It could be like an API call. You know, you have an application where an API is called. Maybe there's a human calling an API, but on the back end, there could be downstream APIs that are called by that intermediary API. So that would be an example.
Cool.
And my limited understanding of that is that there is a difference when we talk about machine access, whether that's process access within the same cluster, let's say, or from outside. When it comes from outside, let's say your Jenkins should perform some operations on your Kubernetes cluster. In that case, actually, that process can easily be treated the same as human, right? Because you're really you're giving the same type of access and treating it in a very similar way. That's my
Within the
limited
same
understanding.
Kubernetes
And
cluster,
no,
it's a
no, no,
service
but
account, right?
especially when it's outside, right? Within the
Yeah.
cluster, let's say, oh, I have thousands of processes, stuff like that. You can, but that's slightly different story. But when it's outside, hey, I should be able to access this from GitHub or from Jenkins, this cluster or something else. Then it's very similar as if it's human. Now, any of you correct me if I'm wrong, kind of, but that's my limited understanding of how it works, right?
That makes sense.
So for us, the one thing is OpenFGA will not provide these bindings. So you have to integrate it, build the bindings yourself. So something needs to call OpenFGA and say, okay, this is the user and what they can access and how. But whether it's an internal process or external or a human, so long as it has like an ID, so something identifies it, you've done the authentication, identification part, you can use OpenFGA.
Does it integrate with SPIFFE, with SPIDs?
At the moment, it doesn't, but so someone has to build that integration.
Okay, right on. And then Siam, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about how Paralus might integrate with the other two technologies.
Yes, absolutely. So I think I spoke about earlier that in the Parallels, we're actually using Treacherous for identity management authentication and Caspin for the authorization as well. And we also have some of the services for Sentry and some of the other core component as well. That's actually listed. Everyone can actually go to the parallels.io. We have an architecture and some of the components. What they are doing is actually very well documented in there as well. So basically, what actually Parallels is actually trying to achieve here is that when you have a cluster that is running up, so Parallels become an access point for your access. So you can't access your cluster directly. There is a Parallels sitting in front of you that is actually intercepting your request and then is actually going into the cluster on your behalf. So what this is is actually allow you to have an ephemeral service account token. As soon as you go out of the cluster, those ephemeral token can be easily removed. So basically what happening is if you actually set up RBAC today yourself, if somebody is actually working at your company and immediately two, three people actually leave of the company, it's becoming your job to actually revoke that permission. But with Parallels, it's just when you actually access the controls, and revoking permission is very easier to be granted. So then you actually add some roles, pre-configured roles, let's say, and we have a very good dashboard that actually gives you the custom workspaces as well. So basically you go into the dashboard, you can actually categorize or segregate your different projects running on there. So basically you have two, three lists. Let's say you have three different clusters. So you can segregate those based on the custom workspaces. And then on that workspaces, I think the flow is that you install a dashboard. When you run on the dashboard, it says GitHub or Okta or any identification we actually supporting today. You can actually access it Parallels via GitLab or GitHub. So that is no need to learn anything is there. So there are a
Cool.
bunch of different technologies that is providing this flow. So we're already using those. Once you inside there, you have different permission for the cluster. Someone have added access, someone has view access, someone has, let's say we created a namespace called Orange, and that's belong to the development team. So unless you belongs to that namespace or you have access to, you can control that access. So basically it's provide a least privilege model and making sure that the person who has access to the cluster, only those person can do operations or perform operations.
Cool. I'm going to do one about OpenFGA. We have a question. Can OpenFGA source users and groups from an existing directory?
That's a really good question. So, but right now it doesn't. So it does not reach out to any other systems. We do have in our pipeline, like building adapters, and like feel free to contribute one. The idea is you need to listen to the changes on that source directory and just feed the data to OpenFGA. So whatever the source directory is, you just need to have some service, listen to the changes, and update them. Here, we don't have anything like we can give you right now, but it should be a very simple thing to build. It's just an adapter, but it has to be a separate service, not built into OpenFGA.
Got it. And then, Siam, with Paralus, can we bring our own CA to use for MTLS or
I
sign
think if
an
you
intermediate?
I think if you install Parallels, the C is already been pre-configured. I need to check with it because we already have our CA cert rotation. So is it we providing extensibility or not? I think we have to check it. So I think based on my knowledge, as you install the cluster, the CA is managed by ourselves for you. So if in order to do your own, I believe there's some hooks available because we have CLI and some API integration as well. But I'm kind of not sure on this. Need to check on
Okay,
it.
excellent. And then is open, if this one's for you, Ragged, is OpenFGA, does it have RBAC Federation for external services?
No. So by default, OpenFGA is very contained. It's very limited, if not in the bad way, but limited as in its scope is very narrow. It doesn't have RBAC federation, and specifically RBAC is something you can model in OpenFGA, but you can model a lot of other use cases. So if you need mapping to a specific thing you have to write that mapping layer and contribute it if you'd like.
And one more for Siam. Is there Paralus as a service? How would it access my cluster setup on a virtual
So I think
private virtual network?
yes, I think what Parallels is actually does is like if you have a Kubernetes distribution, what it does is it's install an agent on the control plane, and then it's actually have a server running outside. So basically, when you intercept the request, install the agent, and that's where it's agent and running. That is actually taking care of controlling the or adding the service account token and revoking the permission and granting the permission. So as long as if you have a private network or if you have already VPN or some other technology, we need access to the Kubernetes distribution so we can install our components on that. Then it's just a point of just act as a proxy for those incoming and outgoing requests. So I think this is our part of our commercial offering, so that we have some sort of other feature. But currently in the Parallels, we have to install it and you have to configure it based on your requirements.
I'm going to ask everyone the same question. And that is, I'd like to hear about like a use case where there's a company that wasn't using your technology and what were they doing instead, and then how did your technology fix any pain points? So I invite you to tell me about that. Jerry, would you like to go first?
Sure. So Hexa is still a pretty new project, but the kinds of things that customers are looking to do, in one example, a customer has built a number of applications internally in different business units serving different functions and so on. And as is often the case, each of those development teams created their own authorization system or service. They didn't use OpenFGA, or unfortunately, or something similar. So it's a lot of homegrown systems, homegrown authorization across their application portfolio. And so they're looking to use IDQL and Hexa as a single way to manage that environment now. Over time, they want to migrate to something that's more common. But while they're dealing with all the different homegrown methods, they're looking at Hexa and IDQL as a way to unify that environment. So I'd say that is a very good example. A second one I'll mention briefly is, an organization that started using one cloud provider historically, but now they've introduced two other ones. So they're working across all the three major cloud providers, and they want to spread workloads across them. So now they're having to deal with, okay, I need subject matter experts now for two additional cloud platforms. And they're also looking for ways to more uniformly manage those access controls and settings so that they can install workloads across multiple of them for high availability, for example. So those would be a couple of use cases that we're looking at currently.
Awesome. That's super helpful. Ragged, tell me, give you a juicy story. I want drama. I want intrigue about
Uh,
an
no, we don't have drama. Everyone loves each other and like butterflies.
no, not with you. I mean, I mean, like a company has a problem and
Uh,
you came in and saved
uh,
the day. That kind of drama.
so I can't tell you what they were using before. It's just like because a lot of things are either hard or just not possible. So you update what you want to do when you start
Uh-huh.
like having FJ and fine grained authorization. We have like for example Canonical in their next release, which is this April. I think most of their what's it? Their Kubernetes alternative. So basically for LXD, underneath the hood,
Uh-huh.
it's using OpenFGA, and they found that unlocked a lot of potential for them to be able to have those kind of fine grained permissions on what you can do, uh, and be able to like update those as you evolve easily. And you can see how they achieve like reach that conclusion publicly because they're working in the public, so you can actually see their reasoning. We have also a bunch of other open source and closed source communities that have adopted OpenFGA. Um, some recent articles that are coming to mind is Stacklock, Minder. Also, they've had they've wrote about how they are using OpenFGA now. Another one article that they published last year, I think, is GoDaddy. So they publish like how they're doing fine grained authorization using OpenFGA. I cannot tell you how they were before, but we can guess either they were using like what's the word? So in app code, I hope not. I don't want that on anyone. I don't wish that on anyone. But or some version of role based, which does not go fine grained enough. Not gonna go into that, but like role based like has limitations. Or it could be they were using ABAC or policy based, and it just was a bit too complicated for their use case.
Will you say what ABAC is, please?
ABAC is attribute-based policy, attribute-based access control.
Okay,
So
thank you.
yeah,
Oh, are you finished? I'm sorry to
yeah.
interrupt. Okay, cool. And then, Siam, what's your use case that you would like to highlight? An actual company that implemented Paralus.
Yes, absolutely. So I think at the beginning of the presentation, talk about because this is a paid feature in our Kubernetes operation platform, and a lot of the big companies are using this for the last 5 years. So we
Mm-hmm.
understand this is not just our customers who need this feature. This is the feature that all of the different people are struggling to meet the requirement on. So currently, outside of our company, there is one company I know that is iHerb. They are using Parallels in production. And there are
Cool.
three more companies is also, but that doesn't allow me to give their name on public. So that's why I'm not
Uh-huh.
telling him. But iHerb is actually using it in the production setup. Another, we also have some integration with some of the other open source project. One is by Clastics Kamaji. We also have a blog post on that, how the Kamaji and Parallels work together. And then we also work with some Argo CD community, Argo CD folks to understand like if Parallels and RBAC can have some sort of integration is in place. And also there's a talk from I think Dario on Clastics Kamaji Capsule, and there's another project how Capsule and Parallels can work together to achieve three different use cases. Because some of the use cases that Kamaji provide is actually fast provisioning of control planes, constant reconciliation of control plane, and single plane pane of glass for multi-cluster management. On the parallel side, we provide secure access federation, RBAC simplification, audit logging, and compliance. One of the feature I think that really a lot of the when we go to the KubeCon and everybody love about it, we track all the kubectl history. So if you do anything in Parallels dashboard, kubectl apply, we track it down. And then something bad happen, you go and view this history to identify what was the last command that causes the cluster for the breakage. So we're trying to, because the UI is not good for that observability front, we're trying to understand how do we actually do it in Grafana kind of a dashboard. And that's become a very unique feature in the ecosystem as well, because the audit logging is, I think, one of the favorite feature of the project as of today.
Cool. Yeah, I could see that. I'm not sure who to direct this question to, and I'm not even sure like why what but it's juicy. Why does Backstage make their own RBAC if so many awesome projects exist? I didn't know Backstage made their own RBAC.
Yeah.
So Victor, will you teach me about that? You're muted, Victor?
There we go. Backstage is a plugin based platform, right? Nothing prevents anyone from adding 57 other RBAC implementations to it, right?
I see.
Now, I'm not sure which RBAC was released first. I think that was from Spotify, which was probably based on whatever they were using internally or something like that. I might be wrong there, right? But the point with Backstage is that it all depends on which plugins you add, really, and that includes RBAC. So I'm not sure that I understood the question fully, or maybe I'm completely wrong.
Does Backstage support some plugins more than others? Like, are some officially supported by the project?
I mean, probably the closest to official is whatever is in the Backstage marketplace or whatever it's called, right? But it's open source. There is no such thing as really official, except maybe blessed by the community, right? But
seems to be more like authentication plugins.
Yeah,
at least from their website. So I'm not sure what the question is referring to.
Like as one answer about why they didn't use any of the ones here is probably because we're all, I think, too recent.
Yes.
So I don't think, unless like they start implementing, Backstage is older than 3 years old. So OpenFGA was not a thing.
It's been around internally before it went open source in Spotify for quite some time.
But as Andres mentioned, Andres is in the chat is our PM. So some companies have been implementing their own OpenFGA plugin for like on top of OpenFGA. It's possible, but there's no I guess there's no well-maintained official version of that.
Cool. Well, if anyone has any questions, now's the last time. I think we're getting ready to wrap up here. While we wait let's go ahead and, you know what? I shouldn't have done the call for questions because I think it's time to do the closing statements.
Yeah.
So we're going to go off the same way we came on. So Ragged, tell us why we should vote for OpenFGA.
Because it's super cool.
Cats and plants and stuff.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I find OpenFGA like insanely interesting in terms of how much it unlocks for other projects. So not just for the users, again, for other projects like Paralus, for example, or even like Hexa, where they can integrate with it. And it changes how you think about authorization, especially if you've been using like policy-based or attribute-based or roles. The ability to do things in a fine-grained manner just unlocks a lot of power. So, I mean, I'm interested.
It's very clear. I love how passionate you are about the project and the community. It's awesome. So thank you so much. All right, Jerry, tell us why we should vote for Hexa.
Well, the industry will never come to agreement on a single policy model or policy format. So orchestration is really the only approach that's going to be able to help you manage these very disparate environments in a cohesive and a uniform way. So that's why we think policy orchestration is so important going forward.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now.
All right, Siam, why should we vote for Paralus?
I think not everyone having a Victor Forsyth-like folks in their company. So there are skill shortage in the industry. So there is an often breakage of clusters And this is because of happening, we don't have RBAC. And RBAC is needed term. It's not just for Kubernetes. We have been using it for the cloud. But now we have technologies, we should adopt it. Otherwise, we actually spend most time setting or breaking things up and then setting this up again. So I think Paralus is giving those some sort of unique feature for audit control and simplify RBAC access management that you should try out.
Amazing. Thank you so much. What an absolutely wonderful show and a wonderful group of humans. That's the best. Yeah. So please vote. The vote's now live in Slack. Yeah, the poll's now live in Slack. That is the link. But also, if you're not in the CNCF Slack, there's a link in the description of this video for you to be able to join the CNCF Slack in the first place. But if you're already in it, that will take you straight to the YouChoose channel. It's you-choose. And
it took us like 7 episodes or something to realize that actually you cannot go to this link if you're not already in CNCF Slack. But hey.
And no one told us. It's like we had spinach on our teeth. And no one said
because
anything about it.
They didn't tell us because those who could tell us through Slack did not have that problem. And those who actually couldn't come and tell us
had to be bold enough to put it in a comment on a YouChoose video, which I feel scared about doing that. I won't lie, especially when it's one that's going to get a lot of views. But anyway, now you're fully empowered to vote, not only today, but in all the episodes moving forward. Please come and vote. And then we'll be here. We have next week's episode is going to be the misfits. It's all the weirdos that didn't fit into any particular episode.
Yeah. Yeah, that's those that we know that are somehow related to security, but we couldn't figure out where to put them exactly. And of all the names for that episode that we could come up with, Misfits ended up being the least offensive.
We did consider calling it the Weirdos episode. We didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I think weird is good. So that's going to be super fun next week. So tune in next week to see one of these 3 technologies implemented in our ongoing demo, maybe to get a Keycloak redo, and then to learn about some weirdos besides the 2 that are already on the screen right now.
Exactly.
And then, yeah.
Go ahead.
Our final episode is going to be live at KubeCon. We're going to do it. It's going to be on a Friday, so it won't be our usual Tuesday time slot. And it'll be Friday from the expo floor at KubeCon. We're going to redo the whole demo from start to finish with all the chosen technologies and kind of revisit, just touch real quick all of the technologies we've talked about along the way. So it's going to be a blast. So come join us live if you're in Paris, and if not, tune in here. And your usual heckling is always appreciated. I think that's it. I think it's a wrap, Victor.
It's a wrap. See you next week, or in Paris if you're coming.
Or both.